What is going on, guys? Vivek Ramaswamy has officially suspended his campaign. He's endorsed Donald Trump, and Donald Trump even had him on stage in New Hampshire just the other day. What does all this mean, and how's this going to play out? And more importantly, who is Vivek Ramaswamy? So today, I kind of want to spend some time actually going over kind of Vivek Ramaswamy's arc. He launched his presidency in February of 2023, and 11 months later, he has now conceded after his defeat in Iowa. But there are some key things which are incredibly important to understand about Vivek Ramaswamy's campaign. And we can look at it from a strategic analysis about not only how you can run a campaign when you know you're the weaker candidate, how you can run a campaign when you know you're not going to win, and also how to strategically place yourself in certain debates and in certain topics to use a presidential campaign to bolster who you are and your future trajectory. One of the lessons that I often say and often tell you guys is running for president or running for office in general isn't always about winning the position. It's very strategic, and people run for different reasons. Guys, if you like this kind of content, you like when I go over personalities, don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. And please leave your comments. I really do look at them, and they help me kind of understand what some of my biases are. But sometimes you guys come up with really good questions that I like to then respond to and answer. So let's look at Vivek Ramaswamy. First, he launches his campaign on Tucker Carlson tonight. Funny enough, which that show no longer exists because Tucker has since gone independent. And he launches his campaign in a very interesting way as a young upstart who really has no former political experience at all, but is an excellent talker. And from the beginning, people were very skeptical. Who is this big pharma guy, as he was called? There is footage of him asking questions in Democratic stages. He was a Soros fellow or linked to Soros fellowship programs when he went to school. But all that kind of drifted by the wayside because Vivek was such a good talker. Vivek continues to be, I think, one of the most interesting characters in the 2023-2024 election cycle because he's one of the people who understood what running for office really means. Not actually being in office, but what running for office means. Vivek had a very good pulse on the Republican electorate and on, I think, voters as a whole. So even looking at the first debate was one of Vivek's very good breakout moments. He was aggressive, he was intelligent, he was well-spoken, but he was also very brave and bold. One of the things that I remember that made him stand out is the moderators actually asked, would you people on stage, which at the time I think there were about 8, support Donald Trump if he was the chosen Republican presidential elect, even if he was convicted or a convicted felon? Vivek immediately raised his hand, and everyone else looked at Vivek and then slowly raised their hand after him. It showed that he was a leader, showed that he ran the room, and showed that he stood by what he believed, and it made everyone else look weak. So one key factor for Vivek was he understood that this election is actually about Donald Trump. It's about no one else. Since 2015, the entire American populace, the entire American aura, mythology, ethos, whatever you want to call it, has been about one guy, and it's about Donald Trump. It's about either how much you hate him or how much you love him. We see that in 2020, and we see that even now in the 2024 election. It's one of the reasons why I think he did so well in Iowa and why I've been saying that I think he's going to win the Republican primary, because at the end of the day, this is the Donald Trump story. And that arc has to end. It either ends with him winning or ends with him losing. But either way, we have to see it come to a conclusion. Vivek understood that. And that is why he never really bashed Donald Trump. He continued to say that he was wrongfully persecuted. He continued to say how he liked what Donald Trump did. And if anything, he continued to say that he would actually be more aggressive than Donald Trump. And this is one of those things that's actually pretty fascinating, because people who voted for Vivek were actually voting for a more aggressive version of Donald Trump, believe it or not. I think Vivek actually swung right of Donald Trump in a lot of ways, especially in his rhetoric. He definitely hinted at a very strong executive. He targeted the FBI, the CIA, what he called the deep state, and really the administrative state as a whole, and really pinpointed them out for a weakness. But where Vivek got really good was calling out neoliberalism and neoconservatism essentially being an anti-war candidate. Once again, Vivek had a great opportunity because Donald Trump was never on stage. So Vivek could essentially be a talking piece for Donald Trump. And Vivek understood that if you want to win the Republican primary, going on the anti-Trump side was not going to work. And we continue to see that with both DeSantis and Nikki Haley. Their anti-Trump strategies have just put them in the wrong camps of people that even moderate Republicans don't really like. The Republican Party has changed, just how the Democratic Party has changed. And we continue to see those changes over time, and they're advancing in a variety of ways. And that's all thanks to Donald Trump. Vivek understood that. He understood that the Republican Party has changed and that issues that Americans care about has changed, which is why all of his talking points are very Trump-esque. So Vivek had a huge advantage on stage because Donald Trump was never there. So he could step in for Donald Trump and essentially espouse all the same viewpoints, which was very easy for him to do because he wasn't really backed by these huge donors. So that came with the disadvantage of course, his campaign had to be suspended. They ran out of cash and he just didn't have the votes in Iowa. But it came with the positive fact that he could say whatever he wanted. And saying whatever he wanted implanted him in the American psyche. And a lot of people say, and I believe them, that Vivek is going to be around for a long time. Vivek's like 40 years old. And so he certainly is what I would say the future of the Republican Party in a lot of ways. And so people go back and forth and they kind of look at his track record and they say that, oh, well, he's just really good at talking. He's a wolf in sheep's clothing. But people like Vivek, almost like Trump, understand that whether they believe what they're saying or not, they know what to say and they know how to stand by it. Because at the end of the day, all they're really obsessed with is winning. And sometimes that's the type of candidate that you want. You want a candidate that's obsessed with winning and that's obsessed with how they look and appear. That can be far better than a candidate who, quote unquote, stands by their morals, because morals are so shifty and so shady depending on the person that you really never know what they're going to do. However, I can trust someone's ego, and I can trust someone's ego better than I can trust their morality. And that's where someone like Vivek or Donald Trump is actually a better fit, because I never know the moral ambiguity that someone's going to rule on for a big decision. But if I know it's about their ego, I'm always going to be thinking, well, what's going to be best for them? And what are they going to think the public is going to perceive them as, which is what they want. So they want, if you're ego-driven, whatever the public is going to love and make you look cool, which is more often than not falls into the populism that we've seen. So Vivek understood that. And we've seen that all the way up into him being in Iowa. And once again, one of the reasons Vivek did so well, talented speaker, so good. He's probably the only presidential candidate I've seen, and this was leading up to Iowa when he was gaining momentum, when people would come and protest his speeches and he would actually welcome them in, talk to them, and revert them and create them into fans. That's what makes Vivek so dangerous, is unlike Trump, who's a different kind of speaker. I'm not calling him a bad speaker. He's a different kind of speaker. He's very memeable. Vivek is not memeable at all. Not a bad thing. He's very intellectual. And so that means that he can justify Trump's talking points very concisely and very well, which makes him very scary, right, to a lot of people. Vivek is like if Trump's ideas had a philosophical understanding behind them. Vivek can understand and explain that philosophical understanding behind some of Trump's big and simple talking points, like build the wall. And then Vivek can go into a long 10-minute tirade about why we do actually need to build a wall, for example. So once again, Vivek understood the moment. He understood the moment that America was in. He understood the American psyche around Donald Trump. So he knew exactly how to run his campaign. At the end of the day, the only place that I don't want to say that he messed up, because it really wasn't a mess up, he didn't want to look like a Trump surrogate, was when he said that he does think he would be better than Trump, and that's why people should vote for him. And he ended up getting 7% of the vote in Iowa, which is a big deal, especially for somebody who has had zero political experience. That's quite amazing, in my opinion. At the end of the day, though, Vivek voters are really Trump voters. And so now that 7% that Vivek got is going to move over to Trump. And Vivek, like the smart, intelligent man he is, has already endorsed Trump the night after he suspended his campaign and was on stage with Trump in New Hampshire. This guy gets it. That's how you lose, right? That's how you lose and still win. Because Vivek is probably the only person that understood that this presidential primary is only about if you want an administrative seat or are running for vice president for Trump. Now, Trump is probably going to pick no one on the presidential stage for vice president. I don't think he's going to pick Vivek for president. And just a quick tirade on that, Vivek is not a strategic vice presidential pick. He doesn't bring in a new subset of voters. He's just Trump 2.0. If you're looking for a vice president, they have to come from a strategic state, a strategic region, or encompass a different, broader voting base that you can then loop into what you want. That is why Donald Trump went with Mike Pence, because Donald Trump, being the radical that he is, needed a bland, Christian, conservative, white guy to ensure evangelicals that Trump was going to be a Republican Christian president, essentially. That's why he chose Mike Pence. Mike Pence was the establishment guy. So Trump is going to do something similar, not necessarily a Pence-like person, but it has to be a strategic vice presidential pick. Vivek does not fit that at all, even though he's incredibly talented and very good. He doesn't bring in a new voter base, in my opinion. They're pretty much the same amount of people. But Vivek is a very powerful person to be speaking on the campaign trail. So now he kind of will act, I'm sure, as a quasi-VP, will maybe get funding from the Trump campaign to go around to different states and hold rallies at his own. And that itself is incredibly powerful. But at the end of the day, Vivek conceded. He set aside his campaign. What that means now is now he's on Team Trump, which is what I always thought would happen. I think Vivek's going to have a very successful career. If Trump wins, he'll get a very good cabinet position, I'm sure, and he will be a very powerful candidate, a very powerful administrative leader. I would not be surprised if he's put as head of the CIA or FBI and just completely demolishes them from the inside out. And I think that would be one of his goals. So Vivek is a very dangerous person to the administrative state.